Now we are turning our attention to Spencer's Prothalamion. Edmund Spencer's Prothalamion. When Charles Lamb described Spencer as the poet's poet, he meant it both as a flattery and as a censure. Censure means criticism. While Spencer has been the source of inspiration for many English poets, he has never been a popular poet. He has never been a popular poet. Only poets have been able to appreciate his poetry. Perhaps his magnum opus, The Fairy Queen, has been the biggest disappointment to the common readers. Perhaps his magnum opus means the greatest work, The Fairy Queen, has been the biggest disappointment to the common readers. It's multi-dimensional allegory. Allegory means story or something which refers to the hidden meaning. Allegory. Its multi-dimensional allegory has made a perusal of it a real punishment. Perusal means reading. Its multi-dimensional allegory has made the reading of it a real punishment. Spencer's poetic fame now chiefly rests on his two wedding odes. Wedding odes. Ode. Ode is a lyric which deals with a serious theme. It is often addressed to someone or somebody. Epithalamion. Epithalamion, his first wedding ode, was about his own wedding. Prothalamion. Pro means before. Thalamus means bride's chamber. Prothalamion, on the other hand, dealt with the betrothal ceremony, means engagement ceremony of two noble ladies. Prothalamion appeals to us because of its autobiographical significance. Prothalamion enchants us by its very poetic quality. Prothalamion was a poem hailing the betrothal of two daughters of the Earl of Worcester. W-O-R-C-E-S-T-E-R, Worcester. The two ladies are shown as arriving at Essex house, Essex, on the banks of the river Thames. The two ladies are shown as arriving at Essex on the banks of the river Thames. There, they are received by the bride's party. The poem opens with a reference to his own personal problems by Spencer. Spencer refers to his own personal problems, sad problems, his work at the court and quarrel with the Queen Elizabeth, etc. Thus he refers to his own personal problems. The poet sees the two ladies arriving as he walks along the banks of the river Thames. He walks with his mind full of frustration or disappointment. The reason is that all his attempts to win the favor of the Queen had miserably failed. All his attempts to win the favor of the Queen Elizabeth had miserably failed. The poem describes a group of nymphs, fairies, the unearthly beings like fairies or angels, a group of nymphs collecting flowers for adorning the brides. They strew. Means they threw. They spread the surface of the river with flowers so as to make the river look like a flower bed. You know, the nymphs strew The surface of the river with the flowers was to make the river look like a flower bed. The two ladies are introduced as two swans coming along the river. The ladies are here mentioned as two swans coming along the river. It is impossible to see anything fairer than them. Jove, the god of gods, Jupiter, Jove had once appeared as a swan before Leda in order to woo her. Even the disgraced Jove was the swan. Even the disgraced Jove was not as fair as the two swans. Seeing them, all the fowls floating along the river Thames, they join in as though in a royal procession. On seeing the beautiful two swans, fair two swans, all the fowls means birds, floating along the river, join in as though in a royal procession. The two swans finally reach the city limits of London. The very mention of London, the very mention of the name London makes Spencer go into raptures. Raptures means moods of joy. Raptures. He describes London as his mother and his nurse. In London, he had the privilege of serving the Earl of Leicester, who had been his patron. It was Leicester House, which had been later converted to Essex House. Remember that Essex House is the venue of the betrothal ceremony. It is the venue of the engagement ceremony. Spencer pays glowing tribute to the Earl of Essex also. He pays glowing tribute to the Earl of Essex also. The Earl of Essex is described as England's glory. He is described as great England's glory and Wales' wide wonder. Wales' wide wonder. His name had sent shock waves throughout Spain. He had carried England's reputation to the distant corners of the world. The poem actually ends with this noble lord, Earl of Essex, coming out of his mansion to receive the two brides. Spencer's poem Prothalamion has a refrain. Refrain means a repetition of a line or a phrase. It comes at the end of each stanza. The refrain comes at the end of every stanza. That is in the 18th line of each stanza. The refrain is, sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. It is significant that T.S. Eliot, the modern poet, quotes this line in his famous poem Wasteland. It is in the third section named Fire Sermon. Eliot uses this line to emphasize the pristine purity and glory of Thames in Elizabethan times. Eliot uses this line to emphasize the pristine purity and glory of Thames during Elizabethan times. Spencer wrote very sonorous English poetry. Sonorous means musical English poetry. His poetic lines are sugary in their sweetness. Spencer's poetry also had a spontaneous and natural flow. However, the poem Prothalamion cannot be described as free from defects. The poem is not free from defects or shortcomings. A typical example is the swan image. The two nobles are first introduced as swans, but suddenly, without any reason, they are mentioned as human creatures. Spencer used allegory in many of his poems, but he never had the patience to sustain the allegory till the end. The haphazard use. Haphazard means aimless, lacking in order. The haphazard use of allegory spoils the total effect of the poem to a very large extent. The haphazard use of this allegory spoils the effect of the poem to a very large extent. Yet, despite such defects, the emotional appeal of the poem is beyond question. As a record of personal sentiments, this poem is also a record of personal sentiments. As a record of personal sentiments, this wedding ode is much more effective than Prothalamion.